Dave knows how.
Welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to go over some little tips and tricks to get your brush hog, and this can actually be applied to many other implements that you may install on your tractor. And we're not going to go over the various many aspects of it that have already been covered on other YouTube channels, such as hooking up the PTO shaft, attaching the lower links, attaching the top link. We're not going to really go over that. That stuff's been pretty much covered by thousands of other channels on YouTube. We're gonna show you a few tips and tricks that will make setting up your implement so that when you use your implement it's more efficient and it's working like it's designed to work. So one of the first things that we want to talk about, and it's probably going to sound like a no-brainer to a lot of you when I say this, but it's probably one of the most neglected things that we as tractor owners do. But it's one of the most important things that we need to do when we set up an implement on the back of our tractor, whether that be a bush hog, a box blade, a finish mower, a rototiller, whether that be a belly mower or a front end loader. And that one thing is simply checking your tire pressure. I can't stress enough how important tire pressure is on your tractor. Now, the best time to check your tire pressure is when your tires are cold. So this means if you leave your tractor sitting out in the sun, that's not really a good time to check your tire pressure. Especially if you've got your tractor set in a situation where the sun's coming up over here and it's heating up this tire on this side of the tractor, but that side of the tractor is in the shade. As this side heats up, the tire pressure is going to go up. When you check that side over there, it's going to show that it's low. So if you go put more pressure in that tire to match this tire, then when that tire heats up, it's going to have even more pressure in it, and it's going to be out of whack again. So it's best to check your tire pressure when your tires are relatively cool. But it's most important to check your tire pressure, period. Now, there's no substitute for the owner's manual. In my owner's manual, the recommended tire inflation for these rear tires is 30 psi. If I look at the side of the tire, the maximum pressure on these rear tires is 30 psi. So what this tells me is that the owner's manual is specifying that they want these tires ran at the top of the limit. Now, admittedly, I do not run my tires with that much air pressure. In fact, I run these tires at 15 pounds, which is about half the tire pressure. And there's a reason why I do that. When you run 15 pounds, or where I'm running 15 pounds in this tire, it actually makes this part of the tire flatten out a little bit. If I pump this thing up to 30 pounds, it's almost crowned out, which doesn't give me quite as good a traction in soft terrain like mud or snow. So typically I like to run right around 15 pounds, and that seems to work good for me. It's not so low that the tire can easily be knocked off the rim. It's not so low a pressure that the tire is like jello, wobbly. But it is soft enough that it gives you a gentler ride. And it's a lot more friendly to be sitting in the tractor seat and riding along, as opposed to if you pump this thing up to 30 pounds. It is a lot more rigid at 30 pounds. It's amazing how much just a few pounds of air can make in a tractor tire. Now the front tires, that's a different story, especially if you have a front end loader or if you're running front weights. The front tires need to be ran at the top of the scale. Now, according to the owner's manual for this tractor, they recommend that you run the front tires also at 30 pounds. If you look at the tire pressure, the maximum pressure is 45 pounds on these front tires. Now, I recently replaced front tires on this tractor. The original front tires had a maximum inflation of 45 pounds. The new tires that were put on there has a maximum inflation of 50 pounds. That's 5 more pounds. Now, generally, I do run these tires at a minimum of 30 pounds on the front. Right now, they've got 35 pounds. And I run them at 35 pounds if I'm doing a lot of loader work. And I was moving a bunch of rock around with the loader, and so I pumped them up an extra 5 pounds. So I typically run the front tires a little heavier when doing loader work, or if I have something weight mounted on the front of the tractor, like a front end loader. And pretty much I keep the front end loader on this tractor. So I run that thing at 30 pounds or more constantly. If you run the front tires too low, then you run the risk of creating that jello wobble on the front when you've got a loaded bucket. So if you bring a loaded bucket up and that thing gets a wobbling, that's not good. You can knock the wheel, the rubber tire off the rim, okay? If you're on unstable ground where you're on an incline or something like that and get that bucket up a little too high and that tire rolls, you could have a potential rollover hazard with the entire tractor. So it's just something that you need to be mindful of. So I just wanted to touch base on the tires real quick. We're not going to get into a whole lot about it, but one quick additional tip. When I check these tires and find that I need to add air, I'll pump the tires up about 3 pounds over my target. And then I use a tire gauge that has a bleeder valve on the side. So you put it on there, and if it's too much air, you push a little button and it drains a little air off the tire. And they work great because I can overinflate it a little bit, and then I can bring that tire pressure right down to exactly where I want it. Then go to the next tire, pump it up a little past where I need it, put that tire gauge on there, bleed it down to exactly where I want it. Then I know that the 2 back tires match and the 2 front tires match. And that's the important part. The 2 back tires need to match, the 2 front tires need to match each other. Well, that's about it on tires and tire inflation. You just need to be mindful of that and keep that in mind. We're going to go on now and talk a little bit about some secrets to getting your bush hog set up behind your tractor and getting it set up properly so that you can be very efficient with your bush hog. Okay, so in this part of the video, we're going to look at getting the bush hog set up on the back of the tractor. And the first thing that we want to take note to is the shape of the bush hog. And we want to be concerned with this front edge right here. We notice that the bush hog is made, it's got a square to it a 90-degree turn right here. And we mainly want to be concerned with this part that runs from this side to that side, this straight edge. We want to square that edge up with the tractor. Now there's not a lot of straight edges on the tractor to square with, but what we do know is that the axle of this tractor runs from the passenger side tire to the driver's side tire straight across. So we want to line this edge up perfectly parallel to each other. The way we're going to do that is with a tape measure. Now if we follow on the ROPS down on this particular tractor, and we get down here and we locate our lower lift arms, and we look on our lower lift arms till we find our check chain. This is the check chain. This keeps the implement from swinging this way and this way. Okay, and it also centers the implement, and it also aligns the implement so that it's parallel with the axle of the tractor. So we're going to put a tape measure in here all the way against that metal surface back here where that check chain attaches to. And we're going to pull that tape straight off of there over to where the check chain attaches and goes through the lower lift arm. And we want to read that measurement, and we can see that measurement is 17 3/4. Now what we want to do is we want to go to the other side of the tractor. We want to pull the same measurement in the same area and come up with the same number. We'll go over there and do that now. So over here on this side, we're going to stick our tape measure up in the same place. Come on over here and line it up, and we are at 17 3/4 on this side as well. Now it took a little bit of adjusting to get this lined up like that, where these two check chains were exactly the same amount screwed in. It's tight. There's no slack there. And for right now, that's the way we need it to be. We've got it tight. It's holding everything taut. And this line is lined up perfectly with the rear axle, the line of the rear axle. Now the next step that we need to do is we need to get the bush hog level this way. So we're trying to level it from side to side, not from front to back. We need to make sure that this side of the bush hog is the same distance off the ground as that side of the bush hog. Well, we know the ground is unlevel, so we need to level these sides with the tractor. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a place on the bush hog that we can measure from. Somewhere on this side of the bush hog that's the same on that side of the bush hog. And where I like to measure from is where the pin goes through for the lift arm. I can put the tape measure right up against there, create a 90, and then pull a measurement. Now ideally, it would be great if we could measure straight up, but there's nothing to measure to up here. We can't measure like that because that's not going to give us the measurement we need. But we can measure on a 45. Now we need something to measure to on the tractor. We could pull a measurement down from the top of the ROPS, down on the ROPS, and put a line at, say, 34 inches, or whatever number suits you. Go to this side, pull that same measurement, 34 inches, mark it, and then pull this tape reading from this pin to that mark. and get both sides to be the same. On this particular tractor, we've got metal fenders. On your tractor, you may have plastic fenders. Either one is fine. The metal fenders are stamped metal. They're very accurate. The plastic fenders are injection molded. They're also very accurate. So from this one to that one is going to be the same. Now I wouldn't measure out here on the end because it's got a little flex to it. But if we come in here close, you'll see a little spot in here where this thing goes over and bends down. And it's very sturdy right there. And that's going to be the same right here as it is over there. So we're going to pull a measurement from this pin up to that point. And we can see that we have a measurement of 27 7/8. We'll walk around on the other side. And we'll pull the same measurement from over here. We'll stick the tape measure down against that same pin at the bottom, pull it up to the same place up on the fender, and we're reading 27 7/8. So we know that this bush hog is square with the axle of the tractor. We also know this bush hog is level with the tractor because those two measurements are the same. Now in the event that you measure this, and when I started this video, everything was out of whack. To get my alignment with the shaft of the tractor, the axle of the tractor, I had to adjust these turnbuckles in and out on each side until they measured the same. To get my adjustment for the side to side level to the tractor, I used this adjustable linkage that's on this lower lift arm. The lower lift arm on the passenger side of most tractors is adjustable. Screw it in, it raises this up. Screw it out, it lowers this one down. We're trying to raise or lower this one side so that the measurement matches the other side over there. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Now, once you get this adjusted, your turnbuckle for your check chain, and you get this lift arm adjusted, make sure that you tighten down the lock nut on all these so that it can't come undone. You don't want that stuff to vibrate loose because then you just wasted a lot of time getting this thing squared up and level. That takes care of squaring the bush hog and leveling it to the tractor. The next part that we're going to look at is going to be setting up the rear tail wheel and getting the deck level from front to back this way. Level from the tail wheel end to the drive shaft end. That's what we're going to look at next. So you'll notice that I've got this piece of steel laying across here. It's a piece of angle iron and it's laying across there. The deck on this Woods mower is sloped down. Sloped down in the front, sloped down in the back so that water can drain off, debris can float off of it and not sit there and cause rust. But there is a flat area right here where the gearbox mounts to, and we've got that angle iron setting on there. So this gives us a straight edge all the way from one end to the other. And we can take our measurements for our blade underneath this mower and figure out how low that blade is so that we know how high or low we're cutting the grass as we're cutting it. So this bush hog right here is adjustable from 1 inch to 9 inch. That would be 1 inch tall, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So right now we've got this bush hog set up to cut the grass 1, 2, 3 inches tall, relatively. It's actually a little bit higher than that. And we can see that because when we run this straight edge over, we notice it's not touching right here. This is the slope of the top of the deck. If we look in our manufacturer's instructions, it says in there that if we bring a straight edge straight across and measure down 8.5 inches, that's where the bottom of the blade is. If we take this tape measure and drop it down here to 8.5 inches, we'll notice that that is darn near right at the bottom of this flange. Not quite, and I've actually put a black Sharpie line right there where the bottom of that blade is. It's just up under there, about 1/4 inch higher than this. So we can now drop this tape measure down and measure off the ground to that area, and it's reading 4 inches. So honestly, we're not far off from the 3 inch calculation. And if you take into consideration that you'll be running the front a little lower than the back, it actually is cutting 3 inches tall. So that's going over a lot of the aspects of the bush hog. And I hope in this video that we can cover a large aspect of setting up a bush hog. We're going to try to find a place that we can go do some mowing and show you how to get this bush hog set level this way at your 3-point control. That'll be coming up on another day. I've got to find a field that's got some tall grass in it and take the bush hog over there, and I'll show you how to do it.
Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.